say that we're here for a purpose. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. All the things that you've experienced in your life, many things that you've experienced because of your choices, many because of the choices of people around you. But regardless, it's not an accident. And what's more important than where you've been, really, is what? It's where you're going. And so I want to talk to you about moving forward. Let's move forward. How many people are just thrilled about the idea of sitting stagnant? It's like, man, you know what? I just need to sit a little more stagnant. No, I don't think so. And you're not going to sit stagnant. You're either going to move forward or you're going to move what? Backwards. People, we don't stay stagnant. In fact, here's what I'll tell you, that in general, if you don't consciously figure out how to move forward, you're naturally going to start going backward. It's a law of entropy, right? Law of entropy, things in the universe tend to get more disorganized, not more organized. All right, have you ever seen, if you parked your car and you didn't touch it, you just left it on the street or wherever, and you left it there for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, would it start to become more polished, or would it start to fall apart? It would start to fall apart, right? And exactly the opposite. Have you ever seen like a bucket of bolts suddenly jump up and assemble themselves into a car? Like, I don't think so, right? It just doesn't work that way. Well, we're the same thing as people. We will tend to disintegrate. We'll tend to get worse. We'll tend to get bitter. We'll tend to get angry. We'll tend to have more degradation of ourselves instead of improvement, unless we focus on it, unless we choose to get better. And so let's talk about moving forward, because I believe it's just a few things. Really, it's just a few things, and we got to get our head around them. Number one is to resolve your past. Resolve your past. See, most people, well, one thing we all have in common is we have a past. All right, let's just start with the basics here. All right, we have a past. The challenge is most of us do this. We sit and we constantly replay over and over and over and over and over our past. And even worse than replaying our past over and over, do we tend to replay our victories or our failures? Isn't it great how we're wired like this? We tend to replay our failures of our past over and over and over. Instead of pre-playing our future, we replay our past. And so first step is to resolve our past. The second step is to focus on the future. Start pre-playing the future that you want instead of replaying the past that you don't want. And it's a conscious decision, because if you don't make that decision, by default, you'll start replaying the failures of your past. So we got to focus on our future and start pre-playing the future that we want. And finally, the last step is to act now. Focusing, acting, taking initiative right now. So let me first just talk about resolving the past. Anybody been through anything the last year, 2, 3? Any challenges? You know, we all have, and there's a truth in my favorite book, and I know it's many of your favorite books too. But in my favorite book, it says suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. And it's straight out of the good book. And you know, you sit there and you say, well, gosh, I don't want any more suffering. It's like, because I don't want any more perseverance, and because I don't want any more character. How many people have their fill of character? Okay? But you know what? Here's the deal. It actually changes who you are. You will not have more success than who you are. It's a cap. And so you have to grow yourself so your success can grow into you. And that's the hope and the good news of the future. And so it's a matter of realizing sometimes things happen to us because of the choices we make. Sometimes things happen to us because of the choices that other people make. Sometimes things happen to us because we needed either a character development or perspective change. And the great master planner allows certain things to happen like that so that we can grow that character, so that we can have more abilities to handle more success in our coming future. But it takes a conscious decision to take a look at your past, and this is important, because you don't want to just put your head in the sand and say, you know what, I didn't go through those things. Because if you bury things that aren't pleasant, and you just stuff them, you know, they'll come out. And they typically come out in forms of anger, in forms of bitterness and resentment, and all those attributes that you don't want that are really all tied into fear. And if you bury things, it doesn't work. You don't want to bury things. You also don't need to overanalyze it either. But I'm saying take a look at the stuff from the past, the stuff you've been through. Take a look at it and say, what lessons can I learn? What's the lesson I can learn out of that? This is key. Because if you don't pick out a few of those lessons, guess what may happen in the present? You may have an opportunity to relearn that lesson. All right? So let's pick out those lessons. We embrace it, we look at it, we learn lessons, and then we pack it up and we let it go. And we let it go. We say that's a piece of us, as those were opportunities for me to learn. Learn from other people's choices, learn from my choices. I'm a wiser person. I'm more prepared for my future now. And so you look at it with a sense of gratitude. The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all stuff you can be grateful for, as long as you've gotten lessons from it. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right, now let me say, here's what the average person does. They don't think that way, do they? Instead, they just drag around all their past in like this great big amount of baggage. Constantly. In fact, let me show you something real quick. All right? Now you're going to think this is ridiculous, because it is. But this is how a lot of you guys showed up here today. All right? And I'm not talking about just your clothes in here. I'm talking about you brought your baggage with you, didn't you? And it's a whole lot of baggage. Is this a big bag? It's a whole lot of baggage. And what happened is you found your seat and you sat down and you kept your baggage real close to you. And there was an empty chair right here. And somebody asked you what? How you doing? Can I sit here? And you said, sure. But what you didn't tell them is if you sit here, by the end of the day, you're going to be holding my baggage. You're going to be holding my baggage because you know what your baggage is? Let me tell you what this is. This is pretty accurate for most people. Most people, their baggage, let me find this thing here. Uh-oh, this is a big pocket. Just for the record, this is Wendy's old baggage. Anyway. Was I slow? Okay. But what this baggage represents for most people is, I've heard all this before. I've heard this before. I've heard this too. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. We're going to get out of here. We're going to be all excited. Oh yeah, new tools. Yeah, that's going to make a difference. I've heard it before. Right? Oh yeah, focus. Yeah, focus. They're going to tell us focus. Then they're going to tell us to be all unified. And oh, here comes the plan. Show the plan 15 times a month. I've heard it. I've heard it before. Now, I know none of you guys are doing this, right? None of you brought the I've heard it before baggage. All right? Because I just wanted you to have a picture. This is what you look like to me. See, they're trying to sit here and learn something, but they've got this sitting on their head. It's the I've heard it before guy they sat next to. Now, some of you guys are saying, that's ridiculous. I would never say I've heard it before, right? I would never, and that's not me. And maybe it was you, and you're like, all right, I won't be the I've heard it before baggage guy. I promise. And you say, because instead, I just brought a little less baggage than that. I know. Chuck, I would never do that to some poor soul sitting next to me. But I might do this. That's not so bad, right? This is the next level of folks. They're sitting here. What is this? This is a... Oh,